Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our raw reaction review of Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story.
Robert as a fellow actor is a dream.
He's Shakespearean.
Robert Englund's a great actor. It's as plain as that.
And as always, I want to start this thing off by saying thank you to Screambox for setting us up with this screener. If you are not subscribed to Screambox, again, what are you doing? They are a great service, really up and coming in the horror space as far as horror streaming content. And they are always hooking us up with these early reviews for their wonderful originals, which we have another one as the topic of discussion today, dealing with probably the most iconic horror character in some circles. I mean, you got kind of that trio of Jason, Michael, and Freddy. You know, like, it's debatable. Some people would put other people in there, but I say those are the big three. What about you, Luke?
Oh, absolutely. And, I think, like, when we look at the three big boys, in a sense, we always put Freddy Kreuger a little bit different. Robert Englund portraying Freddy Kreuger, obviously. Just because, there's always that space and time where Jason and Michael kind of stoic, don't really talk at all, and they're just kind of lumbering kind of big guys, whereas Freddy Kreuger is really a personality and does a lot of different things, and Robert Englund is absolutely responsible for bringing that kind of charisma to the character. So when we were looking at, yes, these are the big three, Freddy Krueger's in a little bit of a different playing field in a sense because of that kind of how animated he is compared to the other two.
I agree. And, I think that if anybody would tell you, like, the most iconic piece of Freddy Kreuger, some people would say, oh, it's his burns, it's his sweater, it's his glove. It's Robert Englund. I mean, that character does not work without him. We've tried it with the remake, and I think Jackie Earle Haley's a fantastic actor. I love Watchmen. But it is one of those things where it is probably, of all the characters, maybe the biggest shoes to fill. And, we're going to have to reach a point one day if we want to see this series return where, unfortunately, we're going to have to see somebody else step in those shoes. If you guys listen to our most recent podcast on Hollow Man, we discuss a little bit of the fact that Kevin Bacon has been tossed out by Robert Englund himself. So, it's one of those things where the guys behind this, they brought us, Pennywise story of It, You're So Cool, Brewster, the Fright Night doc, which, have you seen that one, Luke?
I did. I saw it a while ago, but it's really well done as well.
I
highly
figured
recommend
you would.
it.
You're a big Fright Night guy. And then they also have their new one, RoboDoc, which is supposed to be coming out hopefully sometime later this year. But this is their current serving. This is what they brought us, and we got to check it out. And I just want to know, Luke, how are you feeling about Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares?
I thought it was an intriguing watch, to be honest. Being able to dive into the career of Robert Englund as well. I mean, us being in the horror community, anytime we talk Robert Englund, Freddy Kreuger is going to come up. But to really understand where he came from and his trajectory to getting to A Nightmare on Elm Street, and even after A Nightmare on Elm Street, because, again, it's such a big franchise. That's the one that's heavily talked about that you don't really pay attention. A lot of people don't pay attention in terms of what Robert Englund had done prior or after that actual huge franchise because he's so well known for it. But it is really, intriguing to see how he got started and then kind of the gravitas that he's able to bring to these different roles.
Absolutely. And I would say that was probably my favorite piece of the doc was really the getting behind the curtain with his early career. I loved hearing about just his work, doing stage play and things like that. Things that, I think I kind of heard before. I'm sure in someone's video essay or even Never Sleep Again, it was brought up. But they really take a microscope on Robert Englund, the man, and they really bring you down to like the smallest molecule of his life and then take you all the way up through the height of his career and then through what he's been able to do since. And I think like the biggest piece that I can take away from this is, and I don't think that this is a surprise to anybody or that this needs to be really reinstated, is that Robert Englund is truly one of the kindest, most genuine people, I think, working in the Hollywood system. And just this reinforced the fact of so many directors that he's worked with, big and small, so many actors that they brought in to do little interviews and stuff for, just all saying, just what an encouraging and wonderful guy he is, as the fact of like, even going from being the little guy on set and everybody works as a team and he's trying to make a name for himself but never really stepping on anybody's toes, all the way up to where he's already been playing Freddy Kreuger. He's an icon in this industry, and yet he still takes the time to go up to a first time director or a first time actor and say, hey, you're really killing it out there. I appreciate what you're doing. You've got this. It's like you don't hear a lot of that. You hear a lot of it with PR speak, but to have these people tell you themselves, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I really think that they got to the heart and soul of Robert Englund.
Yeah, and one of the things at the very beginning of the doc is when they dive into his career, and he obviously had a role with playing against Arnold Schwarzenegger, and how he talks about kind of they realized how talented he was, and he mentions getting back to California, their kind of attitude amongst everyone else was to kind of try to take care of Arnold in a sense and make sure that he's able to get roles and everything because he did show so much potential. And that carried on through. That wasn't something where, that's a new age Robert Englund thing, fresh on the scene. I'm going to take care of younger actors because I'm a younger actor. We really go through, especially when you do dive into the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Heather Langenkamp kind of shares a story about, I think it's on Dream Warriors, where she mentions, like, I think she calls Robert Englund the senior, and she's kind of like the mid senior in a sense, and they really kind of banded together to make sure the younger kids on set really felt at home and kind of encouraged them a little bit. And then even jumping forward to post most of the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff, I believe it is on was it 2001 Maniacs is what it was called? I can't remember.
2001 Maniacs, yeah.
And he mentions, the director there mentions it was his first time directing, and Robert Englund came to him and said, I know you're nervous, but anything you need, come to me, and he'll help him out any way he can. So I think that really speaks so much to the character of Robert Englund and why so many people love him, that he never lost how genuine he was from the very start up until now. Because even talking to him, I mean, he's so animated in those interviews, and you'll see it when you actually watch the doc here, where it's like he maintains that how animated he is and the love for everything, all the projects that he talks about, even going from his very first to his most recent, where he's just speaking so happily about even, smaller projects that there are a few in here that, I wasn't even privy to and had to be reminded of because I hadn't seen them yet. And so, but, he reflects on these so positive, like, and everyone just speaks so nicely of him that it's almost infectious. It's like, I think it kind of gets you. Of course, everyone's go-to is going to be to, put the glove back on and do another run as Freddy, but it's like looking at him, and he did great as Freddy Kreuger. It's no secret, but even the smaller roles that he had and where he first started off as, I think he's one of those actors that really got pigeonholed, in what he had done in the horror community, in the horror space, and never really kind of shook it. And he's someone that I really would have loved to have seen him go on after A Nightmare on Elm Street to really see. And they even talk about it in the documentary, where he had a trouble balancing. He had to give up a lot of projects because he was so heavily into A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think, it's one of those things where what could have been, we'll never really know. But I think there was a lot of potential for Robert Englund to even become a very serious dramatic actor.
They do, and that was another intriguing piece of the documentary when they kind of discuss a little bit of that. It is just like, really, do you ride the wave? Do you keep going with this character that he does genuinely love? But do you do that, or do you go back to taking risks and you go back to, seeing if, is this going to tank me? Is this going to, kind of just leave me off to the side? Are they going to replace me, kind of thing? And, there's a lot of stuff that went through his head, but really at the end of the day, it's very genuine to see him just say, I went with the ebbs and flows of life. And, I just tried to just be a good person, and I tried to just get out there and see what happened. He wasn't always great. He wasn't always, had it all together. But in the end, it worked for him, and he got there. And now he is one of those people that just has that iconic name. And a lot of people want to work with him. and he is able to kind of live out his golden years here, taking more roles that he's interested in, and kind of exploring a little bit more of that. I would like to see him explore a little bit more of his dramatic side. Seeing this and getting refreshed on films like Stay Hungry. And what was that? It was the first film he was in. It was something in Butch.
I'm totally
It was,
blanking.
if you're watching the documentary, it's the first film they go over with him. It is his first role. I do want to see that because, again, it's something that maybe I would have overlooked before, but now seeing this documentary, I have more of a curiosity after just hearing the story behind it and how, he was playing in albino and how he had these weird eye contacts in and he had to take them out. And he was so nervous to go to the director and say, hey, this isn't working. And the director was like, yeah, you got it. It's not working. Take them out, and he really started to understand, it's the creative process of filmmaking. Now getting into the doc itself, or do you have something else you wanted to drop in there, Luke?
Oh no, I was just going to mention how in tune he is with all these roles that he's done, as you mentioned, with like taking out the context and everything. How even being a younger actor like that, he was so in tune with what he felt was right, and even speaking upon it, that I think that's even carried through from today, and kind of putting a special, unique touch, the Robert Englund touch, in a sense, on anything that he takes under, because it always is something very special, I think, about his performances. Even like looking at, I honestly had forgotten that he was in the newest season of Stranger Things until they had brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, and he added so much to those scenes as well, that it's like, he just puts those unique spins, and that's why it's like Freddy Krueger's such an iconic character. It's because of that Robert Englund touch.
Oh yeah, and like I was saying here, to get into the documentary itself, Gary Smart and Christopher Griffith, they have made a few, as we said, Pennywise and a few others here. So they're no stranger to this format and this formula. And they have a very interesting story behind them of just how they kind of assembled all these docs over the last 10 years or so. And it's one of those things where you kind of, when it comes to an iconic character like Freddy Krueger, you kind of have to walk the line because we have something that is so in depth with Never Sleep Again. And, I think these guys understood that, which is why they tried to tackle Robert Englund himself a little bit more. And, we talked about it a little bit off air here, because we're prepping our thoughts on the review. And I think that, if I had to say anything, it would be that maybe the doc, and I hate to say this because I love them when they go balls out and they go for the full runtime. Maybe you could have shaved a little bit off here, saved a little bit of time. Although I think it's kind of hard because, you are really just going through Robert Englund's story. I think maybe there's a couple spots here and there, especially in the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff, which I know is kind of the sell for a lot of people, where it's like everybody who doesn't know about Never Sleep Again or hasn't really looked into it, they're going to want to know about all that. But for some of us hardcore horror fans, a little bit of it could be retreading. I think they do a serviceable job of, giving us a little bit more of Robert's perspective and less as the perspective of a whole. But, it's something where it's like, I worry about them turning off some fans who've already seen it and them kind of being like, well, I just want to kind of get through it and kind of skip through that. But I do think this is very competent. I do think that this works in their filmography. If I had to put it, anywhere, do I think it's better than the story of it? I would say it's a little less. The story of it, I thought, had a lot of really emotionally impactful moments, as to where you said, this is very infectious. This is very positive. It's very, Robert Englund, you kind of get his story and you just feel that energy through it. But at the end of the day, I think that this is just more a nice compendium piece to this series of docs and not one of their all-time standout greats.
Yeah, I think as the recent run that we've had on these horror docs, I want to put this right up there with the ones we have seen recently. I think it's a more than capable documentary. I think Robert Englund is a fantastic interview. So anytime he's on screen, you just want to listen to him. I really would have liked to have seen maybe a wider range of interviewees, just from different projects and things, to really kind of get an idea of how they view Robert as well, just to kind of, bring up little stories and things like that. I was hoping that we'd see a little bit more of that. And yeah, I think, the runtime is a little long for me, especially when you're just dealing with one subject. Looking at something like Pennywise, where that was like, there were so many different elements there that they were focusing on different things, whereas this one is just a secluded Robert Englund story. So for a 2 hour plus runtime, it does kind of get a little slows down a little bit. And I understand, you can't really skip on the guy's career. But and it's hard to market without really touching on Nightmare on Elm Street because that is such a huge franchise. But yeah, that was a little bit of retread, but it's like, nature of the beast. You can't skip over it. But yeah, I think overall, this was a very fun documentary, a little slower at times. And, I really would have loved to see a bigger range of the interviewees as well.
I could agree with those criticisms. Definitely a little bit slower, the pacing kind of dipped in some spots, but overall, I still think this is, again, a great addition. I really appreciate that Screambox and these two gentlemen are out here giving us these looks into not just horror franchises, but horror icons. I would love to see them tackle, a couple other people like Kane Hodder would be another one that'd be kind of interesting, and just kind of get into some of these other characters and just really let us see, like, what was going on with them behind the scenes from their perspective. Like we've had the great, we're going over everything with everybody, and Robert Englund's got to say his piece a few times, but like we never really got too deep into his his brain and get to sit with him for 2 hours. And again, I enjoyed it. I think that this is definitely something you guys should definitely check out. It does hit Screambox on June 6th. It is going to also be hitting Blu-ray on July 25th. But I would say get the Screambox subscription. This is definitely going to be a good time to sit down, maybe a late afternoon, and just throw on, and you will not hate it. I think you will enjoy it if you are a horror fan.
Absolutely. And, if you haven't already subscribed to Screambox after a ton of reviews from us already, it's like you definitely have a stellar lineup of documentaries to get through, and not even counting the actual original content that's on there cinematically. So this is another one to add to the pile. It's something where if you don't have a Screambox subscription, certainly get it because, this one's not going to disappoint. And there's a handful of other great documentaries on there as well.
Absolutely. But alrighty, guys, it's going to wrap us up here for our review of Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story. Of course, yes, again, I said this earlier, it's on June 6th. They are doing a little bit of a celebration on that day, as it is Robert Englund's birthday. So if you are watching this, we're putting it out about a week before, and you want to celebrate with us, go ahead and hashtag Robert Englund Day. And let everybody know what your favorite performance is, whether it's, horror or not. Maybe post some of your favorite clips, some of your favorite memorabilia involving the great Robert Englund. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're definitely going to be participating, of course. And yeah, that's not all that we have involving Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares. I actually got to sit down just this past week and talk with Gary Smart and Christopher Griffiths about this documentary, and we talk a little bit about Pennywise and some of their upcoming work as well. So definitely a fun one. It's about a 16 to 20 minute long interview. It'll be a good time for you guys if you like our interviews. If you just want to know more about the men who put these documentaries together, I had a good time with it, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. But yeah, I guess that about wraps us up. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.